All right, let's stay with this particular story now and speak to Dr. Kingsley Makhubela, Recon Director and former ambassador. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Makhubela. Whatever plays out at the ICJ this week, the approach to the court marks a decisive shift in South Africa's relations with either Israel and possibly other countries who are allies as well. What is your reading of what happens next?
Well, this case will redefine, Bongiwe, the relationship between South Africa and the global north. As you know, the global north has been flocking to Israel to say Israel has the right to defend itself, and they haven't come out quite openly about the atrocities that are unfolding in Israel. You saw the statement by the European Union. They are saying they support the ICJ. They support international law, but they are failing to commit in terms of the pointed issue, the case that is before the ICJ, to say where do they stand. And I think it's something that we have to deal with later on. It would have been better, Bongiwe, in my own view, if South Africa had mobilized enough support, particularly around the region in the Middle East, to support its position. It would be unfortunate later on if countries in the region were to distance themselves on this lawsuit that South Africa has presented before the ICJ. So far, these countries haven't even joined South Africa in terms of this lawsuit, which one would have expected that they will be part of it for now. So the fallout is going to be huge because the United States is directly impacted. It has been sending weapons to Israel. So if there's any adverse indictment against Israel, it would inevitably affect the United States. And you've seen Secretary Blinken with the Minister of Defense Gallant, they're really standing side by side dismissing this lawsuit.
I'm going to get to relations with the West in just a moment, but I want to latch on to something that you just said. Do you not think that South Africa has enough support going into this matter?
Support must be overt. People should come out and become part of the lawsuit. It would have strengthened South Africa's case. If they had joined, they are allowed to join in terms of the statute. Countries can join under this principle of if it affects one country, there's a responsibility to account to every country. They could have done that. So no one has come up to join, particularly countries around the Middle East. I've seen the statement now by King Abdullah, really very strong statement, but it's not saying anything in terms of the lawsuit.
When you read some reports, for example, the Department of International Relations saying that while, a fallout with the West may occur, there is a plan to counter the expected Western opposition. Can the relations be managed?
I don't know what's the plan that they have in terms of managing this election, the fallout, Bongiwe. You recall, Bongiwe, the fallout that South Africa had, and I think we are not learning as a country that we're much stronger together as the global South if we had mobilized enough support. When South Africa came up with a position to impose sanctions against Nigeria, when Ken Saro-Wiwa, the Ogonists were killed in Nigeria, no one came to South Africa's support. Even though at the Commonwealth, they all agreed, but no one came up, and South Africa remained alone, and I think we are likely to remain alone. Is it wrong to remain alone? I don't know. It's something that we need to judge, but I think we need to understand that we are stronger together. If we mobilize enough countries to be on our side, we are much stronger.
In your view, then, how should have South Africa then dealt with this one? Because earlier on the show, we spoke to some Israeli citizens who are telling us, who signed a petition, that for them this is such an important matter and they're backing South Africa's case because they're saying that what is happening in Gaza is simply a humanitarian crisis and Israel is really not doing that in their name as the citizens. So then how should have South Africa dealt with this, because it is also concerned about what is taking place there?
Well, anyway, the merit of the South African presentation, I've gone through the document many times, very solid. It's a strategic approach. How do you approach this? That's why I'm saying it would have been much stronger had South Africa mobilized enough support, have gone to this ICJ with a coalition of countries or like-minded countries that share the same understanding in terms of what is unfolding there. I don't know now if South Africa is going to remain alone in terms of dealing with this issue, but I'm saying it would have been better if particularly countries around the region they had joined South Africa as part of this lawsuit, but they haven't.
So post this then, what happens with, trade relations between, and I'm going to stick with South Africa and Israel, for example. What happens then in that particular regard? And is there still room in your reading, given what has unfolded up to this point, for negotiations possibly?
Well, trade between Israel and South Africa has been declining. In 2012, trade between Israel and South Africa was about $1.2 billion. It has since declined. In 2022, it was half of what it used to be. And there are different factors that people are speculating are the cause of this decline in trade. One of this issue, it's the campaign that has been launched here to divest in Israel and sanction against Israel, boycott of Israel, products and so on. So those are issues that are contributing. So if there's tension, if you look at the empirical evidence that is before us, if there's tension before the two countries, it's likely to impact the trade relation between the two countries. So it's inevitable. And you can see the Israelis are very furious about this. They would definitely retaliate in one way or another, depending on the outcome of the hearing.
So if the court rules, for example, for an immediate ceasefire and the opening of all corridors for humanitarian access, Israel and its allies will have to respect that particular decision, and it'll also likely be possibly an arms embargo as well. Do you think they will respect this?
They are not obliged. Remember, the decision of the court is not binding on anyone. It's merely an advisory binding. So Israel may decide to ignore this. But I think in the next 2 days, on the first 2 days, Mongi, what we are going to see is a contest in terms of the prerogative of the court to listen to this. Does the court have the mandate to listen to this? And that's going to be the biggest battleground. Israel, in terms of the substance of the case, I don't think it has any grounds. It can only argue on technicalities. And you're quite right. The argument is going to be this case, it's something that belongs to the ICC because it speaks about international humanitarian law. And international humanitarian law, it's not a purview of the ICC, of the ICJ. It belongs to the ICC. And I think that's going to be the biggest hurdle that South Africa would have to face in the first 2 days.
All right, so possibly jurisdiction issues there in the beginning, but let's see then what happens as soon as this matter. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Makhubela, for your time. Do appreciate it. Let's see then what happens. We'll bring you, that focus. We'll be looking at this particular story throughout the week and also speaking to different role players about this particular one. It's a huge moment as we are, of course, all of us watching. SABC News will be there as well, bringing you live updates. That was Dr. Kingsley Makhubela, Recon Director and former ambassador.